Thanks for joining us today on VIP TV. Jamie Moore, one of the great British fighters of the last 20, 30 years, certainly one of the most exciting. Jamie's in Dubai with Carl Frampton ahead of Carl's WBO Super-Featherweight title challenge against Jamel Herring next Saturday. How's life in Dubai treating you all, Jamie?
It's all right, you know, Steve. It's not too bad. I can't complain. It's life's pretty normal here. So like the only abnormal thing is that you've got to wear a mask everywhere you go. So which is obviously a bit of a hindrance, but life's pretty normal over there. So yeah, it's been a welcome change, to be honest.
Yeah, before we go on talk about Carl and the fight, what's the situation for COVID tests and crowds next Saturday night or on Saturday night?
Yeah, so there's no crowd. Literally a couple of days after the fight got switched here, the Dubai government decided that I think the numbers was turning up slightly, so they decided that they wasn't going to have no events until after Ramadan. So, which was unfortunate because we was hoping that some people could come over and watch Carl. So, but you know, it is what it is. I think if you've got the choice whether it's going to be in BT Studios with no crowd or a setting like Dubai where, you know, Carl's coming right to the end of his career, and if he can pull this off and win a world title at third weight, then what more else is he going to be able to achieve? And you know, it very well could be his last fight. He's got another couple of fights left in him, but you just really don't know. So if, you know, for argument's sake, if it is his last fight, does he want to go out in BT Studios in London behind closed doors, or does he want to do it in a setting like Dubai? So it's certainly my preference for him because I think it'd be a bit of a crying shame if he'd have gone out in BT Studios, you know, somewhere like that.
I mean, just ever since you Carl come into your gym, I know how well we quickly gelled there. Has a day gone by when he hasn't mentioned becoming a three-weight world champion? Because in interviews I've done with him, he brings it up himself so often. And this was even before the Josh Warrington fight we're talking here. You know, we're going back nearly 2 years of this sort of talk.
Yeah, I never really, I never sort of really heard him mention it until maybe a year ago. In fact, no, it would have been just over a year ago. So when we was over in Vegas and he was boxing, then there was talk about it then. So yeah, I mean, the first time he got mentioned, I was like, oh, it's a big stretch that, you know, because of his height, you know, he's thick set, but because of his height, I didn't really think it was a possibility in one way, and the only reason it sort of made sense to me was because stylistically it made sense. You know, Herring's a big guy, but he doesn't use that size in his style. So that was the only reason it made sense to me. If Herring was a big, strong super featherweight who applied pressure and was going to throw Carl about, then I don't think we would have even thought about this fight. But he's a very technical fighter, and so to me that makes sense. You know, it's going to be more of a sort of a chess match of a contest, certainly early on. And I actually believe, you know, watching Herring's fights, that once Carl takes his sting out of him, he'll be able to hurt him as well. I think he's strong enough to hurt him. His body punching has come on, you know, tremendously over the last few years. So yeah, even though I do think Carl's best route to winning this is to outsmart him, I don't think it's without reason that he can actually hurt Herring.
Do you think with Herring also, did you take encouragement from Herring's last, shall we say, win, where, you know, he didn't look great and some people thought, well, he was happy to get out of there just for his title? I'm not saying you're saying that, but a lot of people, that was my thought anyway. Well, he's got out of here. I've got my win. I'm away for the night.
Yeah, and let's have it right, Steve. We'd be silly not to take stuff from that because that's what you do. You look at where, you know, areas where you can take advantage or whether you feel like you can get a foothold in the fight, and he gave us something there. But what I've recognised, and as time goes goes on, you get more experience as a trainer, you realise that when you've got a good fighter like Carl, people don't turn up not in form. You know, they all sort of, you tend to get the best version of every fight you come across. So so I've no doubt that we're going to get the best Jamel Herring because, you know, looking at it from his point of view, look at it from both fighters' point of view. If they lose this fight, the career's over. So so he's a desperate man. It's a massive opportunity for him. But I just don't believe that any of those things will matter because I just think that Carl is better than him in every department and has got a better arsenal. You know, his ring generalship's better. The only thing Herring has got on him is size, natural size, and I don't think that'll be enough in the overall scheme of things.
Yeah. When you first started training, Carl, I remember the first thing. I remember you told me you cut right down on the sparring from what he was doing in previously. You know, have you still stuck to that, and have you changed anything else in the train, or has it just been that not too much sparring now?
As you know, as time goes older, I remember when I first started working with Matt Macklin, which was obviously early on in my training career, and you tend to realise that the older the fighter gets, they need that extra day in between a real tough session. So obviously you have to get that conditioning up and have those hard days, but you've got to make sure they get the extra bit of rest in between because the older you get, you don't recover as quickly. So and Carl's 34. When he came to me, he was just short of 31 and hated boxing. You know, felt like he'd been ground into the floor and couldn't wait to get out of the sport. And now he's 3.5 years on. He's fighting for a third world title at a third weight division, and he feels fresh. So to me, the proof's in the pudding. It's working, and he finished his last spar, he finished his last hard session, and he finished his last sprint session better than I've ever seen him. So I think that's a combination of his body's getting used to the training, that extra rest is helping, the fewer rounds he's sparring are helping, and moving up a weight where you're not dragging your body down to that weight actually benefits you the later on you go in your career.
Yeah. Have you seen Herring's camp arrived? Have you seen them around Dubai or done any media stuff with them?
Well, we've just checked in the fight hotel today, and I just seen him this morning in the hotel in the reception. So, they've literally just arrived. So it's a big. That's another thing. It's a big time difference from where.
That's a long way. It must be. He's from the East Coast. It must be. Is it 7-8 hours time difference and 6 days before the fight?
I think he's come from Colorado, which I think is like 11 hours.
Yeah, wow. So it's an 11-hour time difference.
So there's a big difference, and listen, like I say, those things can't. Well, first of all, they can't be helped, and second of all, you can't look at them things and try and hope that they're going to take into, be took into consideration. We've got to expect the best Jamel Herring, but I've no doubt that those things will all sort of play into our hands, and small things all added up create big problems.
If Carl wins on Saturday, would you be happy for him to retire? A free-weight world champion and a reigning world champion is a monumental achievement. It would make him Ireland's greatest fighter. Would you like to see him retire or have one more?
When we sat in the change rooms after he lost to Josh Warrington, and he said, "That's me done," I would have been happy for him to go then, because for me, Steve, boxing's part of our life. It's not our life. And Carl's spent a hell of a lot of time over the years away from his family. And, he's missed big parts of his kids growing up. So if he'd have walked away then, I'd have been happy for him because he'd have got to spend more time with his family. But he felt like he'd not done himself justice against Josh. Decision-making early on in the fight wasn't great.
Yeah.
And he feels like he could have done better. So he feels like he had a point to prove to himself. And then, fast forward just over 2 years, you know, when we, I said this to Carl the other week, when we were sat in the changing rooms and everyone was upset and no one really knew what to say, I said to him, in a couple of years' time, I don't know why this has happened tonight, but in a couple of years' time, I'm sure we'll look back and we'll go, you know what, that's why that happened. Now, who would have said at that point in time that Carl would be on the verge of fighting and winning a world championship at third weight division, and Josh would have just lost to an unknown Mexican? You would have never in a million years have said that or envisaged that was going to happen. And I believe that the lessons what he took from the defeat to Josh will play a big part in the reason he wins this fight. So I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. It was all part of the journey. It was all given to us as lessons to take on board. And then, so in a way, when he wins this fight, you know, in a small part, he'll have Josh to thank for that. So the world works in mysterious ways.
But if he did walk away as an unbeaten super featherweight world champion, would you be happy for him if he's fought next week? I've had an hard fight. I've won this. I've done my time now. Look what I've achieved. I'm out.
Of course I would. Not enough fighters do that, Steve.
Yeah.
Not enough fighters. And I know these big fights for him, and he can go on, you know, because he's physically still able, he can go on for another 2 or 3 years. But if you're asking me, would I be happy if he walks away? Absolutely. Because your family and your health are the most important things in the world, above everything else. And, you know, he doesn't need to fight. He's secured his family's future forever. And not enough fighters walk away at the top. You know, Lennox Lewis is probably one of the only fighters. Yeah, Joe Calzaghe. You know, you can't think of many more. Rocky Marciano, who gets out as a world champion on the top, not enough do it. So not only winning a world title at third weight would cement his legacy as, you know, the whole of Ireland's greatest ever fighter, but if he walks away, then that'll sort of super stamp it.
Yeah, but before we let you go, we spoke about Carl. I just want to ask yourself, when I think it was when Carl walked in, you was close to walking away from training, doing something else, punditry or whatever, because you were just doing it. You know, I think you only took on Tommy Coyle to help Woody out of a hole, didn't you? And you were about to jack it in. Are you amazed where training's taken you the last 3-4 years now with all these fighters you've got? When, you know, I'm not saying you always loved training, but it wasn't, you know, when you walked away from boxing and Tommy Coyle was there, it wasn't, hey, you give it your life for Tommy, but it wasn't the be all and end all for you.
It was just a bit of a hobby, really, Steve, because yeah, you're right. Steve asked me to help Tommy out, and I agreed to it, and it was nice. You know, great story, great year spent with Tommy, and I never sort of wanted to pursue it as a career. It's just sort of ended up playing out in that way. So, but you know, I'm loving it now. I'm enjoying it, and sometimes in sort of a roundabout way, you find your niche and you find your sort of role in life, and that's the way it played out. It just, again, I said it before, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason, and it just kept coming up. You know, these things kept coming up. People was asking me to coach him, and Colleen, my wife, just said, let's just go with it and see where it takes you. And luckily for us, it's took us to a lot of success, and it took us all around the world. So yeah, long may it continue.
And before we let you go, is Nigel behaving out there? He's not running around pulling down the sheikhs' kits or taking the belts off their waist, is he? He might get in a bit more trouble over there.
Everyone's been told. Everyone's been told to be on the best behaviour. There's a time and a place, so there's none of that malarkey going on over there, mate.
I tell you what, he must be struggling behaving himself for 3 weeks out there. He must be sitting there, sitting with his hands underneath his legs every time you go out.
I'm telling you, and Tommy's over there now as well, because Tommy's part of the corner team. So,
brilliant! Yeah, I didn't know he was over there, Tommy Coyle.
Yeah, he got over there a couple of days ago. So yeah, the full gang's out here, and obviously loads of light-hearted laughter and there's loads of the crack going on, but definitely no debagging people, because that's well out of the equation over there.
Cool. Well, no wonder you're having early nights and you didn't watch the boxing last night. You're tired. You got to get Carl ready right for the last week, and you got those two to babysit, Tommy Carl and Nigel Travis. What a job you got this week, mate. Whether you're getting paid by Carl for this fight isn't enough having to look after them two this week.
Thank you, mate. I've been saying this for a long time, and no one texts me on. They all think it's great that, oh, you and Nigel's like your little sidekick. He's a pain in the backside, mate. Nah, I'm only joking. I love him to bits. He's been great. You know what? He's been great. Yeah, it really has been good over there. And the icing on the cake comes Saturday night. Carl holds that belt above his head. And all the time away spent from the family, it'll all be worth it.
And you know what? Even better than Saturday night, you two might be rampaging around Tenerife for your families in August or something, mate. Let's hope for that for you all both.
God willing, mate. God willing. If not just us, but everyone across the country. May we all be blessed with getting away and getting back to normal life, because everyone's been put in a position where they're struggling enough, eh?
Brilliant. Jamie, thanks very much for giving us some time on VIP TV this week. Have a great week, and all the best for Carl Saturday night. I think the world of him. So let's just hope it comes off.
Top man. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that, mate.
For all boxing info, news, and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.